Hello everyone, I'm Flávia Sales, Marketing Manager at Finboot, and we are here for an interview with our CEO and co-founder, Juan Miguel. Thank you for being here. I know there's a lot going on. We just announced our growing plan after a successful investment round. So that's why we are here today, actually, to talk about a little bit more on green supply chain management. And actually, my first question is about that. What is green supply chain management, and why this is important for heavy industries?
Yes, so green supply chain management is essentially a reimagining of the global industrial complex, right? It's all about introducing eco-friendly practices so that we can mitigate environmental impact, so that we can enhance or improve operational efficiency, and that we can find renewed models for economic growth, right? So it's essentially a way in which we now need to think about the sourcing, production, distribution, and consumption of products with the almost prioritization of having a reduction on emissions, having sustainability always at the forefront of every business decision. And ultimately to do so in a way that is also economically viable, right? So again, we know how important and critical decarbonization and sustainability, particularly for those capital-intensive industries, is. But we also know that economic viability is important as well, right? And it needs to be prioritized together with that road to net zero emissions, right? And I think it's more and more clear that there is a huge business opportunity behind decarbonization, right? And that we're not only doing this because it is the right thing to do, because we have to do it from a kind of almost environmental or kind of physical constraints of our planet, but we're also doing it because we've found a way to kind of unlock an efficient and almost positive impact or positive approach to do so, both from an operational and an economic standpoint.
This industry, they are so important to the economy in general, but of course, due their complexity as well, I'm guessing there's a lot of barriers for them to start these initiatives in general. So I would like to know if in some of these conversations that you have been with your clients, they find these regarding barriers for them to adopt more sustainable practice and to implement green supply chain management even.
Yeah, and this, I think, it's not only with our clients, right? It's just our connection to kind of the global industrial ecosystem. As you know, we focus on helping these capital-intensive companies primarily in sectors like oil and energy, chemicals, and steel. And they do share a lot of elements and a lot of those challenges or barriers in terms of how they can implement or move forward in regards to green supply chain management, right? So certainly, the initial kind of top two barriers or challenges is kind of the financial and technological investments required to achieve this transformation of our industrial complex, right? So let's be realistic. A lot of the technology that we need to achieve our decarbonization targets doesn't exist today, right? So it's very much being developed, it's being created, it's been validated, right? So a lot of the infrastructure that we require doesn't exist either, right? So we need to make heavy investments in that as well, and ultimately that's perhaps the first barrier, right? So I am glad and very positive or optimistic as I see some of our clients already committed to that, to those investments, right? And they themselves prioritizing the future of their businesses around decarbonization, around net zero, and around those sustainability targets that they themselves have set, that oftentimes are even more ambitious than what the regulator is kind of guiding, right? It is true as well that we are behind where we should be, right? So there's a lot of work ahead of us, and that's part of kind of another barrier is that acceleration that needs to happen on this energy transition, right? And on this decarbonization.
Yeah.
So that's another barrier there. There's another element, which is the regulatory landscape, right? So understanding and managing compliance to new regulations. Certainly, Europe is leading the charge in that, and what I do expect to see, like it has happened with other regulatory elements in the past, is again as Europe set the bar for data protection, and we saw that had an impact globally. I do expect to see the same with some of these sustainability or ESG related or carbon related regulations, right? And then lastly, another barrier to kind of achieve, and another barrier that is particularly linked to that management part of green supply chain, is the collaboration, right? So all of these are very complex industries. There's multiple stakeholders. Even within the same organization, there's multiple business units that take part on ensuring, let's say, the chain of custody, the right provenance of those sustainable, circular, or low carbon raw materials, tracing the chain of custody. There's a lot of stakeholders and a lot of business units that are involved in that process, right? So even internally, you see organizations that have different business units that need to make sure that there is that right provenance of the circular, renewable, or low carbon raw material, managing the chain of custody of how that becomes that final product, and making sure there's integrity across that entire process, right? And that barrier in particular is like what we can address with digital solutions, right? Or essentially leveraging the power of digital solutions to collaborate not only with external stakeholders, but also within our own organizations.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a lot of things, very interesting, and I would like to go further on each of them, at least 3 of them that you mentioned. How this green supply chain management can really help these big companies to, reach their net zero goals. Can you go further on that?
Sure, and it goes back very much to that point of collaboration and data sharing, right? So the only way we can achieve that kind of reliable decarbonization is if we are mapping out these supply chains, and with those products that are hitting the market, that we are, let's say, substantiating the claims of those products with evidence-backed data and with enriched supply chain data, right? So ultimately, we've seen, again, there's been a lot of fraud. There's still a lot of fraud going on, particularly when it comes to the use of either recycled, renewable, or low carbon raw materials.
Greenwashing, right?
A lot of greenwashing, exactly. So that's been a challenge. The regulators starting to address that, and some companies are taking steps. Some of the kind of industry leaders are taking the steps to make sure that their claims are not exactly, that they're not biased, or that they're not unreliable. And the only way to do that is by capturing that supply chain data from their supplier network, by tracing their industrial processes, and by sharing that in a way that their customers, the regulator, and even the consumer can access this information.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're touching a point that is very important, because you have all the data, you have a lot of stakeholders on this supply chain, but I'm wondering if they need some guidance, and that's why I think that regulators are important, right? So there are in place already some regulations focused on the data sharing approach and around sustainability that can guide these companies somehow on how to do that.
Yeah, there certainly is, and you're absolutely right. Regulation is a part of this, is a big part of this. But let me make one thing very clear. It would be a mistake for any kind of producer of these circular and sustainable products to wait for the regulation before they start introducing some of those green supply chain management processes and almost procedures within their organizations, right? Because ultimately, again, right now is where we are seeing there's a big opportunity to be a first mover when it comes to decarbonization, to be a first mover when it comes to sharing that enriched supply chain data that your peers maybe aren't sharing at the moment, right? So you can be the first one to have that granularity and that full traceability and that full detail per batch of here's how I'm reinserting waste into the supply chain, here's how I'm lowering the emissions of my own industrial process, and here's how I'm measuring the carbon footprint per batch of product that I'm inserting into the market. And I can communicate that, and I've got all of the evidence and the details to back up those claims, right? So right now, essentially, we're facing that gigantic business opportunity to be a first mover, right? And some of our clients, by being the early adopters of that technology, have made that and have received a return on that investment already.
Yeah, because depends the ones that can see the opportunity within this, let's say, challenge on how to be at the same time more sustainable, but at the same time growing your business right around that. So this is, I would like to ask you now, I'm sure that regulations, as you say, is important, but the companies that can see the opportunity behind the sustainability, they can be the first movers, as you said, and probably there's a lot of companies doing that. They can position themselves as leaders as well, right? So do you have any client in mind that you can share some use cases on how they are doing and how they are getting the benefit of doing right now?
Sure. Yeah. No. Absolutely. And then I'm happy to circle back to regulation as well, and to mention some of those concrete examples on regulation as well. But yeah, as I said, and as you kind of confirmed that, right, to us is about those early adopters that are taking advantage of the business opportunity behind sustainability and behind green supply chain management, right? So as I've mentioned earlier, our core industries at Finboot are oil and energy, chemicals, and steel. And we've got success stories in all of those areas, and some of our clients have scaled up the ecosystems there. Repsol, of course, always comes to mind as an excellent example of a successful implementation. We've been working with Repsol already for, I think, going on 6 years now, or over 6 years. Today, our technology is used in every industrial complex that Repsol has in Portugal and Spain. It's used across multiple business units, multiple supply chains, and multiple production or product lines. More than 400 users, I think, in total today, and that continues to grow, and we continue to expand as we started in operational efficiency in their supply chain and improving the ways they were managing compliance and quality data between their different refineries and chemical complexes. We then moved on to sustainability and tracing some of their circular and renewable products, including things like hydrotreated vegetable oils for transportation, or as sustainable fuel for transportation. Now moving into their chemicals business with some circularity initiatives there as well, and then exploring again as Repsol continues to expand their portfolio of low carbon and circular energy products. We are there as part of helping them trace and manage the supply chain information.
So really we can understand that as the strategy of the company on sustainable products, Finboot can also help them on that journey, along that journey, and grow step by step if needed, right?
Absolutely, because that's another point, right? So thinking, hey, am I ready? Maybe I'm not producing in enough volume, or I don't have enough in my portfolio, and it's still early. And the answer is no. It's all about kind of where we start, exactly. and just another client example of that would be our work with Cepsa Chemicals, where we started tracing one of their renewable chemicals, right? And that's one line we implemented their use of coconut oil and palm oil for chemical compounds that are then used for the home care kind of industry. And you start in that, and now that's a solution that's implemented in 3 of their global facilities, right? So users in Canada, Brazil, and in Spain. And now exploring how we move into other production facilities, into other product lines, right? So it's all about starting, right? And right now is where you got the most to win out of, as I said, being the first mover.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 clients, and you said that one of the industry we focus on is also mining. There's any case there that we can explore?
Yes, we've done quite a bit on kind of tracing scrap to metal processes there, and we've got some content out there with our clients in that industry as well. We are tracing some of these processes in Spain. We're tracing some of these processes in the US as well, where we got some commercial traction in that industry as well. And what you see there is that, again, why are these like? 'Cause sometimes I get like, oh, you work in energy, but you work in chemicals and you work in steel. It's like they're all
different areas and sectors.
Yeah, but they all share kind of some of the same challenges when it comes to traceability and when it comes to basically mapping out those supply chains and substantiating their ESG and sustainability credentials, right? And the fact that we've been able to create a solution that is flexible enough, that it's easy to adapt, easy to configure, that we can actually tap into and solve the problems of very different industries or sectors, but they share or that have in common very similar challenges.
Yes, very industry across industry, because they, as I said, similar challenge on traceability. I would like to know if some of these clients and these projects, because of course they're happening over the time, and especially to adapt probably to regulations. So as you said, to go back a little bit on regulations, do you know some of them that you can mention and that their importance as well?
Sure, right? And not only mention them, but kind of see how they are already having an impact, right? So you see things like CSRD in Europe, right, which came into place, or came into force rather, earlier this year. So as of January 1st, certain companies now have a mandate to have sustainability reporting as a regulatory ask, not as a voluntary ask. And yes, CSRD is starting to focus on large enterprise, but what we are now seeing as they're trying to gather their data and make sure that they are prepared for the first batch of reports, which will come out next year, is that this has an indirect impact in the mid-market as well, because now they need to make sure that some of the data in those sustainability reports,
the providers, right?
It's coming from their suppliers, exactly. So ultimately, while the supplier may not have to be compliant with CSRD, they do need to comply to their customers with the new requirements for traceability. So that's one already in place. There's a lot of traction around regulation on digital product passports, right? So making sure that we have the data on product composition. This is also particularly linked to those products being produced with circularity in mind. So how do I dispose of products, right? And different industries have different deadlines.
Battery, for example, right?
Battery is one of the kind of shortest timelines at the moment, right, in terms of implementing digital product passports. But you have it in the chemical industry, you have it in consumer products, so it's coming and it will be a standard. As I said before, right now it's about taking the first step and gain a bigger return by being able to offer that early to your network of customers, right? Then you've got carbon regulation as well, right? Things like CBAM. And their traceability again becomes critical, because it's all about a carbon adjustment mechanism for imports, right? And a lot of these raw materials that we are using for manufacturing in Europe, they come from outside of Europe, right? So understanding the carbon emissions tied to those raw materials is super important and will be critical as CBAM comes into force. There's many more, some of them even in discussions, right? So Europe has the greenwashing regulation, the industry net zero directive, the critical raw materials. So there's a lot of actions here, and I'm actually I see that as a kind of positive trend from the EU on being first.
Yeah, it's a change of mindset, right?
A change of mindset. I think the change of mindset was already there, right? And what we're now seeing is the regulator kind of saying, the change of mindset, exactly. It's not an option. It's something that you will have to do.
Definitely. There's no way of thinking opposite than that. So, I mean, we are going to the end of the interview, but I would like to know if there are any final thoughts that you want to share. I think this digitalization role on the decarbonization of capital-intensive industry is very interesting. So, do you have any final thoughts to share?
I think to us, the kind of the main driver or the main call to action that we give is, hey, reach out, right? So I think today I talked about our work with Repsol and Cepsa We've got other success stories. We got the relationship with 𝗂𝗵𝗶 is another one that it's already been going on for 3 years, and we've got an excellent roadmap of how that's going to progress. So 𝗂𝗵𝗶 being one of the largest chemical manufacturers of the world is a huge impact, let's say, of how these giants are saying, hey, green supply chain management, it's something important, it's something critical for us, and it's something where we are investing actively and are investing heavily, right? And lastly, as you said, right, so we started this kind of campaign with as almost on the back of that more recent fundraise. Right now, Finboot is kind of ready to get their technology out there to scale it up across multiple clients. If any player, let's say, any sustainability director, any CIO even within these capital-intensive segments that we've been discussing today, sees kind of commonalities on some of the challenges that they have and what we've been discussing today, I kind of more than encourage them to reach out, speak with someone in our team, and I can almost guarantee that there's going to be a fit there where we can help you with some of your kind of biggest challenges there.
Of course. So with that, I want to thank you first, and then everyone that is watching us. And if you want to reach out, you can follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, even YouTube with more videos. And of course, reach out our team and stay tuned for more interviews. Thank you.